Hello, welcome to Triumphant Stories of Resilience podcast. I'm Dr. Kim DeRay, a trauma healing specialist, and we welcome Steve Norton today. I'm so excited. I just want to tell you this podcast is sponsored by Somalistics, a virtual workshop program to help build resilience and balance the nervous system under trauma conditions or crisis. Anyway, Steve, thank you so much. You have quite a story to tell.
Well, thank you, Kim.
Yes. So I know a little bit about it, but you might want to share with other people where you have this life-threatening stroke and go from from the very beginning. So tell me about that.
Well, thank you, Kim, for having me on today. November 28th of 2012, I suffered a massive hemorrhagic stroke. And out of all the strokes in the world, only 12% are the type that I had. And out of that 12%, only 2% survive.
Wow.
So I'm one of the survivors.
You're a miracle.
I wouldn't say that.
Okay, but here to share that
Yes.
miraculous story for sure.
Exactly, to share my journey.
Yes. Okay. And you have a stroke. Do you know at that point there was a stroke?
I did at that point. When I was 13 years old, my father had a stroke. So I saw all the signs and symptoms because I watched him have his stroke. I was alone in a home, and my left arm went completely numb. So I had to get to a phone. And at that time, I'd already packed my cell phone in my backpack because I was leaving on a trip. So I had to get the portable phone and dial 911 to get help.
And were you able to speak?
I was able to speak because it was just my arm. My stroke was like a slow bleed.
Oh, okay.
In my brain. So your brain's like sand, and the blood just kind of flowed through my brain. And little by little, it took movement on my left side out.
And you're in attitude, in the overwhelm, thinking what?
I was never scared. I was never doubting that I wouldn't recover from this. I knew that I would heal and that something really good was going to come from this. And as I look back on it now, it's because I saw my father suffer the exact same stroke. He went on and was the coach of my little league team. We traveled. He went back to work. We did everything, and he was paralyzed in his left side too.
So you had this hero to follow, in a sense, or a modeling of a role model, how to get through adverse conditions.
Exactly, and resilience.
Resilience. And at this time, you work as a chef?
I was a private chef for a family. I also managed their estate here in Arizona.
And you continue to do that work then?
I was a year of recovery. And then about 14 months after my stroke, I went back to working part-time for them. Not as their chef, but managing their estate.
Okay, so take me back to the year of recovery. How do you keep moving forward with the I can when it had to be difficult?
I think the whole time I knew that my father survived it and I had survived. 3 months after my stroke, I was being moved from the hospital to a skilled nursing facility. My doctor came in that night and sat on the edge of my bed and looked at me and said, "Steve, you know why you're here, don't you?" I said, "Yes, I had a stroke." He goes, "Yeah, but I've talked to you, your whole family. I've talked to you. I've talked to the people you work for and all your friends. And believe me, you have a lot of friends. They all told me you're the guy that takes care of everybody else, but you never took care of yourself. And I guarantee you that if you do not change your lifestyle right in the here and now, you'll be back here in a year, either dead or with another stroke." And so that night, I laid in bed and looked at the scene and said, okay, what can I control in my life? I can control what I put in this hand and put in my mouth. That's the one thing I can't have control over. So I changed my life right then and there, and I started eating super healthy.
So you're a chef for other people, feeding them healthy foods, and your lifestyle's different than that at the time of the stroke?
Because you're working 14, sometimes 16-hour days. What do? Convenience. Fast food, frozen food, canned food. And I wasn't taking care of myself. I was rewarding myself with food. And that caught up to me. My doctor said I hit the trifecta, not in a good way. I was morbidly obese, diabetes out of control, and high blood pressure. And that's what caused my stroke.
And you go to this, now from the hospital to a rehab, and with that transfer, you start taking care of yourself.
I met with the executive director of the rehab. I'm a big advocate. So I went to the executive director and to the cook at the rehab unit. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen a rehab unit, but it's all canned vegetables, canned fruits, frozen lasagna, box lasagna, things like that. That's what they feed.
I didn't know that. I would think that they would be the epitome of healthy eating in having
You would
whole
think.
food.
That's a good one.
You would think. It's a rehab center, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so you advocate for yourself.
I met with the cook and I said, I will teach you a great curry sauce. I'll teach you a great arrabbiata sauce. I'll teach you a great marinara sauce if you'll get frozen vegetables and whole grains from me. Nutrient-dense food. She was excited because no one ever taught her how to really cook. So I spent time with her in the kitchen teaching her, and I was in my space. Food to me is therapy. So I'm teaching her this. Well, over the next 3.5 months, I started to lose weight. The doctors took me off medication. And next thing you know, one doctor took me off insulin. And that woke everybody up in the whole facility. They said, no one takes anybody off insulin. So I knew what I was doing, Kim, was the right thing to do, and I was on the right path.
Yes, very much so. And so there becomes this new purpose. Okay, your health first,
Correct.
right? And that took, after the first 3 months in the hospital, another 9 months to complete.
Yeah, pretty much. I realized in those 3 months when I was in the skilled nursing facility that what I was doing was making a change. I was feeling better, stronger. My rehab was going well. I slept solid. I just felt better overall. My spirit was better. My skin was clear. I just felt really good. So I knew I was onto something. And then, so when I left the rehab center, I went to a care home. And the care home, I did the same thing with the cook there, taught them great sauces. They got whole grains and whole fruits and vegetables for me. I'm very much a plant-forward eater, where I eat less animal protein, and I put a lot of fruits and vegetables and whole grains on my plate. You know, I kind of look at my animal protein as my side dish.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so as I started to go there, by the end of 10 months, I moved out of my own apartment. And this is someone who was told I would never live alone, I would never drive again, I'd never work again, I'd be in facility the rest of my life.
Oh, you proved them all wrong.
I'm
right?
here to tell you right now, I do everything I used to do except run marathons. And I never ran marathons before, so I'm good.
No, you're good. Right. That
Yeah,
wasn't something you're missing,
exactly.
right? So would you say that through this pretty traumatic, life-threatening event, you have a more fulfilling life? Or what would you say?
I have a life with purpose now. I have a life giving back. As I got involved in the disability community here in Arizona, I was meeting so many individuals with disabilities. I'd say, let's go get a cup of coffee. Let's go get lunch. And they would say no. And finally I asked, why not? They said, because it's hard to get out. It's hard to get into a restaurant. People stare at me in my wheelchair. And I'm like, who cares? Let's go. But I also noticed they were complaining about fatigue. They were complaining about pressure sores, UTIs, and bowel issues. So I started talking to these individuals, and they were talking about what they eat. Frozen pizza, fast food, convenient food, processed food. And so I knew right then and there that was my new purpose now after my stroke, is to help individuals with dexterity issues and people with disabilities learn to eat healthier and love the kitchen again.
So this feeding them, you're feeding their soul too, because do you think that nutritional malnutrition piece that they had, I would call it malnutrition, had something to do with the blockage to say, I can't meet you, I can't get out, people will stare at me. Do you think that had a influence on their lens in how they didn't move forward in life?
Some people, I believe so, yeah, absolutely. I think the challenges hold people back a little bit. When I would get people out, I was teaching people how to cook, how to eat healthier. Food to me is connection. If you and I were to sit down over a meal or even cook a meal in the kitchen together, we'd have such a connection together. And I really believe that humans do that. We can connect over food.
Oh, absolutely. We all need to eat.
Right.
Yes, yes. And when we stop doing that connection piece or that what I call table time where you sit with people, I think we lose our resilience and start to feel a loneliness in
Yes.
that we're alone in the world and we fast food it through a window and it's so isolating.
And now we've got all the delivery apps. Everybody can just sit at home and order food on their phone.
Right.
It comes right to their door. And it's not necessarily the healthy food either.
Yes.
But to me, food was therapy to me. When I was in the skilled nursing facility, it so happened that my roommate was the executive chef at the Scottsdale Hyatt. He'd been in a horrific motorcycle accident and broke 180 bones in his body. So he was there in recovery. So he and I connected over food instantly.
Yes.
And it was just such a passion because he loved food too. And he was like me. He was overweight, all the issues I had. Well, he started losing weight too, and now we're still great friends. He's married now with 2 kids, It's wonderful.
Yes, it's a wonderful connection. So tell me then how you use your purpose. You go into people's homes, or how do you're a life coach, a nutritional coach?
I'd say a coach through food. That's what somebody told me. You coach through food. Because I teach people to eat nutrient-dense, plant-forward eating. But looking at your plate and thinking of your plate, half or 3/4 of it is fruits and vegetables and whole grains, and 1/4 of it's animal protein or your side dish. And just to really think about it, it's more of a mindset, of a lifestyle change. People say, I could never do that. And when I say plant-forward, that isn't vegetarian or being a vegan. It's just thinking to put more plants, fruits, and vegetables, whole foods on your plate. No processed foods. No, I'm not perfect, Kim. I love my oatmeal raisin cookies and I love brownies.
Yes, and that's part of it too, is not to get so rigid in this eating that you wouldn't have those things. It's the majority of how you eat.
Because you're setting yourself up for failure. It's almost a game to me now. Every time I get lab work done for my doctors, it's almost a game if I can be better than the last 3 months. I kind of look at it that way.
Yes.
But I stop and think, do I really want this or do I need it when I eat?
When you eat it.
Yeah.
And when you do have those questions answered, do you put it back when you go, will you do that? Or sometimes you go, I don't need it, but I want it. Do you offer
sometimes
yourself?
I put it back. Sometimes I eat it. Sometimes, like I said, oatmeal raisin cookies. I love soft, chewy, warm oatmeal raisin cookies. And sometimes I'm like, do I really want this or do I need it? And I usually will treat myself because, like you said, it's not a strict, rigid thing. I'm not setting myself up for failure.
Yes, exactly.
But now I've been doing this for 12 years now. It's just a part of my life. It's a mindset. I still go out to restaurants. I go out to eat. I find something in every restaurant that I can eat. And you'll find nowadays chefs in restaurants are very amenable to what your diet is, your diet restrictions are.
Very much so, I noticed that chefs want to feed you too. Mm-hmm. So this is what I notice in working with people who've had significant trauma, is they're in fight or flight or freeze, and their digestive tract goes off, and then they're not hungry or over hungry or controlled eating. Mm-hmm. So when you're working with people who have had a significant amount of trauma, then how do you break that piece of the parasympathetic nervous system that's off track, that's hooked to eating? How do you work with that?
When I work with people in that sense, I work in baby steps, small steps. I don't try to go from 0 to 180 degrees, 180 miles an hour. I take small baby steps with them because to me that's important. That's what I did. I took little baby steps. Now, yes, I went cold turkey because I went plant-based whole foods for a whole year just to lose the weight and change my life. But I knew I could do that. I had such a goal to change that because I didn't want to die. I had survived. I was one of the 2% that survived. So I knew I was here for a reason.
You had a bigger inspiration or a bigger boost, right?
Right.
Yes, platform to spring off of. I'm alive.
I'm alive, yeah.
I'm alive.
And it's interesting because when I work with people, they start seeing the difference in their lives. They feel better. Their skin looks better. They're sleeping better. They're not as fatigued. So they get excited. So they take a bigger step.
They're alive.
Yeah.
Yes. So give me an example of someone that's had trauma and a baby step that you would take with them.
I had a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine. He's a quadriplegic. That means he's paralyzed from the chest down completely. But he was really into nutrition when he saw me and met me. But he can't cook. He's paralyzed completely. But he worked with his caregivers, took the knowledge I instilled in him and taught his caregivers how to cook, how to make nutrient-dense meals. And he just did baby steps with them, He started doing things they could do easily. And I'd give him recipes that he'd tell them to make.
Okay. So, yes.
Like getting rid of carbonated beverages, getting rid of orange juice, eating the whole orange because it's got the fiber, so your blood sugar is not going to spike as much.
Yes, and I don't know if anybody understands, you would, or nutritionists would, about the place where this nutritional piece is a chemistry piece, because orange juice and an orange are two different things coming into our body in sugars or fiber.
Fiber, exactly. And for me, I got to reading labels. And I went to the Culinary Institute of America. I got a food education there. So I went back to my nutrition class 30 years ago there and tried to remember what they taught me in nutrition. Pulled out the old textbook and looked at it and taught myself. I'm not a nutritionist. This was my journey and what I did. But I applied my education to what I was doing now. And fiber is a big deal of it. Fiber will lower the sugar level or your carbohydrate level so that your blood sugar doesn't spike.
So how do people get this knowledge?
Reading.
Okay.
I hate to say this, the internet, but books. Nowadays, everybody's got an article about food and nutrition. I mean, you think about it, you can pick up any magazine and read about it, but it's trial and error too, trying it for yourself. Like, for instance, I have a friend who's diabetic, just like I am. He cannot eat oatmeal because oatmeal spikes his blood sugar. I can eat oatmeal. It keeps it nice and level.
Especially if it's in a cookie, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
And I learned different things, like instead of, refined white sugar, I'll use raw sugar, which is unrefined. Or I'll use honey. And Arizona's got wonderful honeys here.
Yes.
I look at coconut sugar, things that are a little lower on the glycemic index.
So you still have sugar or sweet things,
Right.
but in a different
In a
form.
different manner, not as much. And my doctor does not believe you can get rid of diabetes, because once you're diabetic, you're diabetic. But he says I have controlled it through food, which is wonderful.
Well, I noticed when you were speaking that you said, I have diabetes or something to that piece, but you call it managing it, but you don't take insulin.
I do not take insulin, no.
But you check your blood sugar level?
I do not check my blood sugar.
Okay.
My doctor said I don't need to. I get my A1C, which is a 3-month test of your blood sugar, and my doctor wants it below 7. Someone who does not have diabetes, they're in the 5s and low 6s. My last A1C was 6.8.
Congratulations. Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
great. Yes. So tell me, you've written all this down in a book. Tell me about the book. Tell me the things that you're doing with other people to help inspire them, because that's what this podcast is your story then can inspire somebody who either is obese, has diabetes, and or has had a stroke. You've got a couple of things, the trifecta.
One thing I learned, Kim, that I've really found a passion for in being a mentor, I would go to the hospitals and I would talk to that newly injured person who just had the stroke, or a traumatic injury, like the 23-year-old lady or man who had a motorcycle accident and broke their neck, a 70-year-old man or woman who'd had a stroke or a heart attack and they thought their life was over. And I will never forget one man, his name was Steve too. I went to visit him, and he didn't want to listen to me. He looked the opposite way. He could care less about what I was saying. He was so angry, and he was paralyzed just like me. His was an ischemic stroke, which is a blood clot stroke. Mine was a hemorrhagic, which is a bleed. So I talked to him, told him my story, told him what I was doing. I ran into him about 8 months later at a gym that we work out at. And he comes up to me and goes, Steve? And I said, yes. He goes, I'm Steve. You maybe not remember me, but you came to visit me in the hospital about 8 months ago. And then I clicked. I said, yes, I do remember you at Honor Health. And he said, I want to apologize to you because I didn't want to hear anything you had to say. I was so mad. All I was doing was thinking, how can I go home and kill myself and not leave a mess for my family? I thought my life was over. But I listened. I heard you. I want to tell you now, I live alone again. I'm driving, I'm working, and I come work out 5 days a week. I'm healthier now than I've ever been. He said, I remember you telling me that you were healthier than you ever been in your entire life, and you were happier. I said, yes, that's true. And he says, I want to thank you because you stopped me from committing suicide.
Wow.
That's very powerful to hear.
Wow.
So I knew I was onto something.
Yes, the inspiration that your life isn't over.
And that's the title of my book, actually.
Yes.
I started thinking I wanted to write a book because I used to lay in that hospital bed after the doctor told me I had survived. I'd look at the ceiling, you're on your back in the hospital counting those little dots in the ceiling tiles. And I went, wow, my life isn't over with. Now what? My life's not over with. Now what? And I started thinking about my journey of recovery, and I realized I was applying all my life lessons I had up to the age of 49 when I had my stroke and applying it into certain steps of recovery. And I thought, I need to make a manual that will help people get through these traumatic experiences, these life-changing events. So I started writing a book and just writing. Now it's been a journey of love, a long journey of love, because it's taken over 7 years to write it. But I'm also the type of person, I want everything perfect before I release it. Finally, somebody's just do it, So I finally did it. It's going coming out this summer, and it's called Thrive. Your life is not over with, now what?
I can't wait to read it.
Thank you.
That's great. So the now what is what you keep asking to yourself and ask others to do that. I'm alive. Now what? Was there ever a place where you felt hopeless like that other Steve that didn't want to hear you, but he truly was at that point where it says, there's no now what? I want this over with.
Interesting, Kim. I get asked that question a lot, and I think about that a lot because I never really went into that deep depression. And I think it goes back to having my father as a role model and seeing what he went through. And I've always been someone that has looked at the half glass full. My parents always looked at life as half full. Whatever got them down, my parents had a positive attitude. But I think for me, I went from now what to what's next.
What's next?
I get excited about it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, because you have this positive outlook, it seems to me, of whatever it is, it's going to be good. Mm-hmm. But that comes from this early childhood of positivity or having the role model. Is that where it comes from?
Yes. I'm the youngest of 4 boys, too, so I had 3 older brothers. My oldest brothers are twins. They're 17 years older than me. Then my other brother's 11 years older than me. So I was I was like, ooh, what happened? So I got pregnant, my mom used to say. But I saw them live their lives, full lives. I had a brother that lost his leg at the age of 28. He went on very successful, married, kids, So I've seen trauma in my family, but they all go on living life. So I think in the back of my mind, subconsciously, maybe I realized, okay, this happened to me. Let's get going. Let's start living life. I remember laying in that bed, that old saying, I can lay in this bed and get busy dying, or I can lay in this bed and get lazy living. I got busy living.
And it seems like you never questioned that part about dying. It was like you were close to death, mm-hmm. but there was this place that you chose to live in a sense.
Yes. I was very close to death. I remember being very calm when I was having my stroke, extremely calm, just relaxed. I wasn't freaking out or, oh my gosh. And there was this voice in my head saying, this isn't over. Your life's not over. It's going to keep going. Something really good is going to happen from this. And I remember even in the hospital in recovery, I remember that in my mind. Something's good here. I've survived. I'm one of the 2% of the types of strokes that I had that survived.
You're one of the few people who I hear the story of this huge adversity and this huge springboard of beyond the adversity without dipping down into anger, depression, pity. I don't hear any of that.
I think, don't get me wrong, life isn't all unicorns and rainbows.
Okay.
I had to learn to accept it's going to take me longer to do things. It's going to take me longer to get dressed. The first time I got dressed on my own, it took me 2.5 hours. I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? I'd get frustrated. I can get dressed down in about 2 minutes. I tell my friends, spontaneity really is in my life right now. Because if you can't say, let's go get coffee, let's go get dinner, I need a little more time to plan. But I personally never felt in that deep, deep depression. I think because I knew I survived. And again, looking at my family and the things I saw growing up as a child.
And this real positive mindset that never wavers.
It really doesn't ever waver. People always ask me, don't you ever get depressed? I have bad days, but we all have bad days. We all have days that you want to just lay in bed all day and watch TV, or sit on the couch. But always get up every morning and try to have that positive attitude. I wake up every morning, that old adage, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for that day. And I live by those. And I try to have 2 wins a day, 2 positive things that happen every day.
And so your wins look like what? Because sometimes the wins are, I got dressed under 2 hours. And sometimes the wins are, I went to the hospital and I talked to 5 people. So your wins are subjective?
Wins are subjective. They don't have to be huge wins. They can be baby wins. It can be that I was able to get outside today because it wasn't raining. I went outside and enjoyed the sun. I had a huge win this last week. I was asked to go on a 4-city speaking tour about accessible cooking and my life journey of how I changed my life.
Well, congratulations.
That was a huge win.
Yes.
I said that's enough wins for the whole week.
Yes, maybe the month. That part where you get to inspire, influence other people who are in similar adverse traumas and inspire life beyond that. It's great.
It was interesting, Kim. A year and a half ago, I went to a 4-day seminar, a workshop, and it was about, bettering yourself, one of those workshops. And at the end, we had our goals. We had to have our goals. And I'd written down my goals. One of my goals was to be a public speaker. And I never thought in a million years I'd ever want to be on a stage talking to people. But I learned over the last 12 years, I get energized being on stage talking to people. And it's not an ego thing for me. It's that I can tell I'm helping them. And at the end of the 4 days, we were analyzed by the people that were there. And he says, there's nothing for us to say. You did it. I said, what do you mean? He says, you held everyone's attention. They were mesmerized by your story. They wouldn't say a word until you were done finishing. You've made it. You're a public speaker.
Yes,
So I
that's
laughed.
good. Yes, it was easy, right?
It was easy. And it's like having a conversation like we are to them. And it's just sharing my journey. It's who I am, what I've went through. If I help somebody, that's fantastic. And it gives me so much joy to do that.
Yes, and that's the piece that we aren't alone in our journeys. We might have a different set of circumstances, and we don't have to stay isolated in that. And helping other people is one way to gain some of that.
You give back.
Give
And that's
back.
what I tell people that I work with. Find a passion that you have and give back a little bit. Find something that you have a passion doing and develop that into something you can really do to help others. For me, being with people and talking to people, and I've always been a very outgoing person. I'm an extrovert for sure.
I can tell.
Personality chain. I remember I woke up from my coma, and it was about 2 months into my stroke. And my brother was sitting there. My niece had started a caring bridge, which is a thing that the hospitals have where people can write notes to you. And my brother was reading them to me. And I said, read them to me, He says, Steve, you have 2,500 entries. I don't have 25 friends.
Well, now you do, and maybe more.
No, my brother said that. I don't have
Oh,
25
your
friends.
brother
He goes,
didn't.
who are all these people in your life? Because my brother lived in a different state than I did. We knew each other's lives, but he didn't really know. Who are all these people? Look at all these people you've touched in their lives.
Oh, already, and now you're touching
And that
more.
gave me
Yes.
a sense of gratitude that so many people cared for me that I'd never realized it.
Yes. And so when you go and visit these people and they don't have that outgoing personality, they've isolated in their world because it's smaller and people don't connect as much. And they don't believe that they're enough or worthy of saving or having a better life. What do you mentor them with?
I talk to them, if they're in the hospital or they're in the skilled nursing facility, when I talk to them, I say, go down to the dining room, meet another patient in the hospital, become friends with them, talk about your journey with them, share what they're going through. That's what I did when I was in the hospital. I talked to the people in the dining room. I generally learned their journey and realized their struggles are the same struggles I was going through. We can share tips. There's a lot of, support groups for people with disabilities, for women, men, or co-ed. But you learn from each other, and that's what I encourage them to do, is to talk to other people. Find one person that you're comfortable talking with that may be in the same situation you're in. You guys can share tips. And when you're able to give that person a tip that's going to help them, you feel so good inside.
Yes. And vice versa.
Exactly.
Yes. So we
I
inspire
still
each
learn.
other.
I learn every single day from people.
I know, isn't it amazing? Well, that's why I do this work is I sit with people who've had a tremendous amount of trauma, and I am in awe of their stories, but more so their resilience and their ability to take the adversity and come through it, sometimes walking through fire in a sense, metaphorically, to some place where there's more purpose in going through that they would never have found. And so the adversity or the trauma or the crisis or the stressor becomes the avenue to connection to themselves and others.
Right, true. And it's a lot of people in the disability community that become disabled, they were athletes, so they turn to sports, they turn to adaptive sports, and that gives them new purpose. For me, I was a chef. I turned to food. That gave me purpose. I found something to do with food that would help people with disabilities. It could be through writing. I have friends that are wheelchair users that were in drama club in high school. They turned to drama, being in theater again. So you find your purpose and you get out there and you live it.
So they already had an inspiration, a purpose, but then it flourished through the avenue of adversity.
And it's hard at times. I mean, I'll be honest with you, some people are like, I can never do anything, I can't do this. That old adage, I don't ever use the word can't. I'll try. There's things I can't do right now. I can't get up and run across the room or run a marathon. But to be honest with you, I've been in the chair now for 12 years. I celebrated my 12-year anniversary. And there's times, Kim, I don't even think I'm in my chair anymore. I just am living life, just rolling through life like anybody else.
Yes. And then when people view you, do you think, or do they tell you they see the chair?
Some people, that's an interesting question you ask. I was meeting a friend of mine from Northern California where I used to live. I was meeting her here for dinner. So I was already seated at the table when she came in. And I hadn't seen her since I had my stroke. She came in, we gave each other a hug. She sat down across from me at the table. We were talking, we were halfway through a meal, and she goes, "Oh my God, Steve, I forgot. You're in a wheelchair." She had to go like this to look around me to see the chair again. She goes, "You're the same person." I said, "Well, yeah, it didn't change my personality."
Right. So if you don't see the chair, maybe others don't either.
That's true. My chair does not define who I am.
Right.
My chair and my legs, that's all it is.
Yes.
Do I wish I could get up and walk and run? I do, but I've adapted to life, and I live a very fulfilling, happy life now.
You've accepted your circumstances, but you've gone beyond acceptance in the part where you're not letting a disability stop your ability.
Right, exactly. My disability does not define me. It actually enhances the person I am. My mission is to educate, empower, and enhance the lives of people with disabilities through food. Because food and nutrition is so important to me because it changed my life 360 degrees.
And it's such a grounding, basic piece to our whole foundation as a being.
We all have to eat. Am I going to eat, processed food? Or am I going to eat something whole food that's nutrient dense? It's going to give me energy.
So in your book, do you have recipes?
In another book, I do have recipes.
Oh, okay. Well, what's the other book?
I'm developing a cookbook right now.
Oh,
too.
okay, good.
That are simple. What I wanted to bring accessible cooking to individuals, which means all the accessible tools to use in the kitchen. My kitchen used to look like Williams-Sonoma. Now I've got a couple knives and some fry pans, and I'm good. But it's about bringing the accessibleness to cooking. Being able to use the tools that you need two hands to do, but there's adaptive tools now where you only have one hand. Or seniors with dexterity issues as they age. So that's my goal, is to bring accessible cooking. So I'm developing a cookbook, easy to eat, easy to prepare, plant-forward eating, recipes that you can do that make it very simple.
Well, I want that book. Okay, name the first book you took 7 years to write. Name that one again.
Thrive. Your life is not over with. Now what?
Now what? I love
And
it.
throughout the book, there's lifelines. I call them lifelines. They're little things, inspirational quotes per se, that kept me going through my recovery. And it's basically a roadmap to recovery.
Can you name a couple lifelines?
Find your purpose is one of them.
Okay.
That's a big one.
That's a big one. Okay.
Dig down deep inside and see what your passion is. We all still have patience. Even my friend who's a quadriplegic, he's very passionate about life.
I think people think that if there is a disability or physical barrier, that some of their purpose is ended, but you're giving a huge inspiration that that's not true.
And I'm not the only one. I've known many, many people that are wheelchair users, have mobility issues, dexterity issues. They're out living full lives. You know, there's ones that don't feel they can live a full life. And those are the people that I want to help and be part of. And I learn from other people. I have friends I learn from every day of my life that are disabled. You
Yes.
know? And we always say it's an equal opportunity club. Anyone can join at any time.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. Yes. And to take the pieces that you've learned and somebody that hasn't had a stroke, but maybe they've had a different type of trauma, but are still physically able, is to take the inspiration of life isn't over, life is just beginning. You can go through adverse pieces and still have a productive life.
It was so interesting because I wrote the book with people with disabilities in mind, and then friends were reading it, and what I call beta readers would give me feedback on the book. And they said, Steve, this isn't just for anybody with a disability. I'm not disabled, and this helps me.
Exactly. So thank you. Thanks for sharing your story and the life purpose. And
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for being here.
yes.
I always say my favorite quote is, life is a banquet, and most people are starving to death.
So you're going to feed them.
Yes. Live, live, live.
Live, live, live. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Wonderful. So thank you all for joining in. I hope you really enjoyed Steve's story because I do, and you can look forward to his book. So thank you from Triumphant, the Stories of Resilience, and sponsored by Somalistic. Thank you.